Hey everyone, it's the Diplomat, and we are on part 52 of the Chris Watts Discovery read-through, and we are starting here on page 1410. We'll go into some interesting things in this part, including an interview with Nikolas, that's Nicole's son, who was there on the day, on that Monday at the house with her. We'll also go into a brief interview with Frank Sr. and Frank Jr., followed by a number of, evidence and reports, including a very sad portion regarding Nico. So I just want to thank you all for being here. It's been about 10 months now, and I just thank you from the bottom of my heart. We just passed silently 4,000 subscribers, and I just thank you so much for that. It's absolutely incredible, and I love being able to interact with you, hear what you all have to say, and I'm deeply appreciative of the fact that you all, find something in my readings that connects with you, and the encouragement, as always, is just very appreciative of that. I'm very grateful. So without further ado, let's get into the reports. This first page is a supplemental report by Detective Dave Baumhover of the FPD. This is on October 7th, 2018 at 12:26 p.m. That's the date of the report. It says, on August 20th, 2018 at approximately 5:36 p.m., I met with Nicole, that's Shanann's friend, and her minor son Nikolas, herein referred to as Nick. The interview was visually and audibly recorded. I asked Nick to walk me through the events the first time he and his mother were at the Watts residence on August 13th. Nick said that they knocked on the front door and received no response, so they opened it using the deadbolt code. Nick said the door would not open all the way because of a security latch, hotel style, was in place. Nick said they shouted Shanann's name 3 times but received no response. Nick said Nicole moved her car next to the garage door so he could stand on it to see into the garage through the upper panel of the door that contains windows. Nick said he was able to see Shanann's car in the garage, so they went back to the front door, opened it, and shouted Shanann's name again several times. Nick said that they called Watts, who told them via speakerphone that Shanann was on a play date. Nick said he learned Watts provided a different story regarding Shanann's whereabouts to her friend, Cassie. Nicole then said Watts provided different stories to her, Cassie, Addie, and Sandy, Shanann's mom. Nick said he looked around the house for a way inside for about 40 minutes and figured Shanann was inside and unconscious. From his previous dog-sitting experience at the Watts' residence, Nick said he was aware the alarm system would activate by attempting to raise the garage door, and believed the sound of the alarm would wake Shanann if she were asleep. Nick said the alarm triggered but was then disarmed. Nick said Watts called them and told them to leave the house alone and asked them not to call the cops or kick the door open. Nick said they told Watts they weren't at the house and proceeded to drive to Shanann's doctor's office, where Nicole learned Shanann hadn't shown up for her appointment. Nick said he and Nicole drove back to the Watts residence and attempted to contact Shanann and the girls, but again received no response. They called Watts, who stated he was on his way home, but still an hour away. It should be noted that Nick estimated an hour had passed from the first time they spoke with Watts. Nick said that's when they decided to call the police. Nick said Officer Coonrod arrived and walked around the house looking for a way inside, and also shouted inside the partially opened front door. When Watts arrived, he entered the garage door through the main door, opened the door to Shanann's car, and then walked into the house alone. Nick said Watts ran around the entire house before opening the front door to let them all in. Once inside, they all went upstairs, where Nick felt like something, in quotes, wasn't right, and began moving the pillows located on the couch at the top of the stairs. It was then he found Shanann's phone under the pillows. I asked Nick what drove him to the couch. He said the couch would be the place he would hide something. Nick said he was going to look under the couch, under the beds, and in Bella's and Cece's rooms, but the couch was the closest thing to him. I asked Nick to draw the couch and the location of Shanann's phone in relation to the couch. Nick explained what he was drawing as he drew and depicted Shanann's cell phone near the open end of the couch under a pillow. When asked, Nick said he located the phone under 3 or 4 pillows and that it was face up. Nicole added Shanann's phone had a clutch on it the prior weekend, but that it was no longer on the phone. Nicole described the clutch as being similar to a lanyard and that Shanann put it around her wrist so she wouldn't drop her phone. It should be noted the clutch was attached to the phone when I recovered it. Nick announced he located Shanann's phone and Watts put his hand out and said, "Thanks." Nick handed the phone to Officer Coonrod, who subsequently handed it to Watts. Officer Coonrod asked Watts if he could access the phone to see if Shanann had texted someone, and left. Nick said Watts didn't know or pretended not to know Shanann's password at first, but eventually accessed it using numbers corresponding to their unborn child's projection birth date. Nicole said Cassie suggested, via phone, using the birth date. Nicole said that both Cassie and Sandy were on speakerphone at one point while they were going through the house. Nick said while Watts was looking through Shanann's phone, he left to search the basement, but found nothing. Nick went back up to the main level and looked around, but found nothing. He said everyone else came to the main level as well, so he proceeded upstairs to search the bedrooms and closets. Nick said he noticed the bed in the master bedroom was stripped of its bedding, and he's never seen that before when he's babysat or dog sat at the Watts residence previously. Nick described the sheets as white with blue stripes. Nick said he walked outside and was approached by a neighbor, Nate, who stated he had a surveillance camera that sees everything. While in Nate's house with Officer Coonrod, Nick said he observed the video footage showing Watts' truck back up to the garage door, but he couldn't see the back of the truck. I asked Nick how Nate became aware of the situation to begin with. He said when Officer Coonrod arrived, he, Nick, walked around the house outside of the house with him, and that's when Nate first became aware Shanann was missing. Nick said Chris followed them into Nate's house as well to watch the video surveillance footage. Nick said it seemed like Watts was attempting to block his and Officer Coonrod's view of Nate's TV when the footage showed Watts walking around the truck. Nick said he went back into the Watts' residence and looked around some more and discovered a, in quotes, red spot on a plant located on the lower landing of the main staircase. It should be noted Officer Coonrod and I inspected the spot and determined it was inconsistent with blood. Nick recalled Watts, Officer Coonrod, and I looking around inside the house, but said his memory was blurred after that. Nick said he, Madison, the toddler, and Nicole left in their car when Sandy called and asked Nicole to return to Nate's house and provide him with Frank's phone number. I asked Nick if he was aware of Watts' prior knowledge of the Nate's camera and the direction it pointed. Nick said he knew Watts was aware of the camera because Watts stated he previously asked Nate to review footage regarding an auto trespass. Near the end of the interview with Nick, Nicole offered information regarding the app name Life360 that maps a phone's location and movements. Nicole explained her phone shows specific locations and times from the time they left Arizona through their, Nicole and Nick's activities. Nicole agreed to send screenshots of her activity to me. On August 22nd at 5:42 a.m., I received from Nicole via email 16 screenshots in JPEG format. The screenshots will be included in the digital case file as evidence. Nothing further, Detective Dave Balmover. So the next page is just Balmover's notes. Runs for a couple pages on that last interview with Nick. And it also has Nick's drawing as to where he found the phone. We also have a scanned copy of Nick's redacted license. And then we have a lot of pages of the app readouts that Nicole was telling the police officers It contains all of the different trips that they took that day. You can come back and take a look. It's all Google Maps, and it shows, the amount of time and so on and so forth. But we're going to just skip these, not go into them very deeply. And then we come to another report. This is also Balmover supplemental. This is dated October 7th, 2018 at 1:02 p.m. On August 20th, 2018, along with Michael Rourke and several DAs, I met with Frank and Frank Rzuceks at the Weld County District Attorney's Office, so Frank Sr. and Frank Jr. While briefly interviewing both Frank and Frankie, I learned the following. And these are just all different bullet points, so they don't necessarily relate to one another. Watts stated to Sandy that Shanann, in quotes, was in one of her moods. Nicole spoke with Sandy that morning and was concerned about Shanann and the girls' whereabouts. Shanann's phone and iWatch were never turned off, and that she charged them on her nightstand each night. The girls' Jack and Jill bathroom doors were typically locked at night to keep Bella and Celeste out of the bathroom. Sandy called Watts and left a voice message. She subsequently called him again to check on Shanann. Watts was distant with Shanann's family the 1 week he was in North Carolina. This was the last week of 6 weeks Shanann and the girls were in North Carolina visiting family. Frank stated Watts' relationship with his mother is not as good as the relationship with his dad. Frank confirmed the conflict between Shanann and her mother-in-law, Cindy Watts, regarding Celeste's peanut allergy. Frankie stated that Shanann, in quotes, wore the pants in the family. Frank said Watts was more stern and confrontational with Bella and Celeste while he was visiting North Carolina the last week of the 6-week trip. Frank installed the hotel-style latch on the front door to prevent Celeste from opening the door. Frank also said a big blue blanket was typically on the couch. Note, this blanket has not been located to date. Frank confirmed the outside garage door opener keypad has never worked. Nothing further, Detective Dave Balmover. And then the following page, 2 pages, has notes regarding that interview. Okay, the next page is Supplemental Report 87, and this is Amanda Purcell is the officer. Report date October 7th, 2018 at 8:11 a.m. It reads, on September 27th, 2018 at approximately 10:40 a.m., Evidence Supervisor Purcell responded to the CBI Crime Lab located in Arvada, Colorado, to both retrieve and drop off evidence. CBI evidence technician Christy Sauser took custody of a purple makeup bag containing makeup from Shanann, item 133. Frederick evidence supervisor took custody of fetus Niko to be brought back to the Frederick Police Department in order to make arrangements for shipment to North Carolina. Niko would be shipped by the Weld County Coroner's Office to a funeral home in North Carolina for purposes of burial. See Detective Balmover's supplemental for further information. Once back at the Frederick Police Department, Niko was placed in the freezer until such time the coroner could take custody. The evidence submitted and evidence returned receipts were scanned and added to the case file. On September 28th, Detective Balmover took custody of Niko for transport to the Weld County Coroner's Office. In the evidence system, Niko will carry the disposition of, in quotes, transferred to other agency for chain of custody purposes. Nothing further, Purcell. The following page is part of Supplemental 87. It has evidence submitted, receipt. So these are the receipts, makeup bag with makeup belonging to Shanann, and the other one is Niko. It's tough to think that because of Chris, his little boy Niko was shipped back to North Carolina to be buried. Next is Supplemental 88, also Purcell, on October 9th at 8:23 a.m. It reads, on October 2nd, 2018, Records Supervisor Purcell received mail for the department from Greeley Police Department. The envelope contained a report by Greeley Officer Brown in regards to an abandoned vehicle. Upon reading further, the report is from August 15th, while Shanann, Bella, and Celeste were still considered missing. The reporting person believed the abandoned vehicle may have been related to the missing parties. Upon Officer Brown's investigation, it was determined the vehicle was not related to this case. CGPD report for further information. Officer Brown spoke with Sergeant Albert in regards to this vehicle, and this vehicle is mentioned in Sergeant Albert's earlier supplemental. Because Supervisor Purcell received the report from Greeley PD, the Greeley report shall carry as an attachment to this report. And then we have the Greeley report, and just lists the responding officers and the report time from August 15th at 8:38, and it has to do with that a vehicle, and it is a Pontiac Grand Am of 2002. This just lists all different information about Brad, who is the reporting person, and so on. I'll read the narrative here. At approximately 8:38, a call came in from Brad, who stated he had seen a maroon Pontiac Grand Am with license plate CUA 891, which appeared to be abandoned on the side of the road in the 500 block of North 83rd Avenue. I responded to the scene, and Brad was still present. He stated he believed it was in connection with Shanann Watts. Watts is a pregnant female who went missing from Firestone, Colorado, under the jurisdiction of Frederick Police Department, and was last seen around 2 a.m. on August 13th. I asked Brad why he believed it was in connection with that case, and he stated due to the time frame he believed it was connected. The vehicle had the driver's side window down and a flat tire on the rear passenger side. It also appeared the radio and stereo had been removed from the console. No keys were present. Brad went on to state he works for AG TAC Security and currently works at Front Range Energy, which is an ethanol plant in Windsor. He works from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. and had seen there was no vehicle there at approximately 11:45 a.m. on August 12th. He noted on his way home from work at approximately 8 a.m. on August 13th the vehicle was there, and he had seen it several times since, as it appeared it had not been moved since he initially saw it on the morning of August 13th. I did run the license plate, and it came back to Martina and Alberto. It registers to the address in Denver, Colorado, and was not reported stolen. I did request Denver Police Department go to that address and attempt to contact the registered owner to see if they knew where their vehicle was located. Officer Young with the Denver Police Department requested a phone call back from me through dispatch, and when I attempted to call 2 times, no voicemail box was set up, and I received a text asking if he could call me back later. Officer Young did contact me over the phone at approximately 10:54 a.m. on August 15th, stating he had went to the address and received no answer at the door. He had contacted neighbors as well, who stated they were unaware of who lived at that residence. I also spoke with Sergeant Albert from Frederick Police Department, due to the fact that Brad believed it was connected. I did advise them, and Sergeant Albert told me nothing indicated any connection, and he did not recognize the name, and no vehicle was associated with their case. I asked him if he recognized the reporting party's name of Brad, and he stated he believed he had seen it on caller ID earlier in the week. It was possible he had attempted to call in the car earlier. He requested a callback if I received any additional information, which led me to believe it was in connection with their case. I then recontacted Brad over the phone and asked him if he had attempted to report this car earlier in the week. He stated he had not, and I was the first officer he had talked to about the vehicle. I did tag the vehicle with an orange abandoned tag, dated to the time of this call. A copy of the Greeley Police Department unattended vehicle warning will be placed into miscellaneous documents under this case number. This report should be forwarded to Frederick Police Department for their records if needed. Nothing further. So the next is Supplemental 89, Purcell, October 9th at 8:40 a.m. On October 2nd at approximately 2 p.m., Evidence Supervisor Purcell took custody of a 4-terabyte external hard drive from Mike Prill of Greeley PD. This hard drive contains all information retrieved from the executed search warrants for the Watts and Mistress phones. The hard drive was checked into Frederick Evidence Item Set 177. Mike Prill also returned phones belonging to Shanann Watts, Chris Watts' personal and work cell, and the Mistress, which were then checked in and secured in the evidence room. Nothing further, Purcell. Next is Supplemental 90, Balmover, October 10th at 10:42 a.m. It reads, on September 28th, I transported Nico, collected during Shanann Watts' autopsy, to the Weld County Coroner's office. Upon arrival, I met with Weld County Coroner Carl Blesch and transferred custody of Nico directly to him. The purpose of this transfer was to arrange a release and transportation of Nico to Frank and Sandy Rzuceks via a funeral home located in North Carolina. Prior to this transfer, Nico was kept in the evidence at the Frederick Police Department subsequent to an authorized Weld DA release by the CBI Forensic Laboratory. Refer to Evidence Technician Amanda Purcell's report regarding the custody transfer from the CBI lab to Frederick PDD. Refer to Evidence Technician Amanda Purcell's report regarding the custody transfer from CBI lab to Frederick PD. Evidence. Nothing further. Detective Dave Balmover. Next is Supplemental 91. This is Purcell, October 10th at 2:16 p.m. On October 10th at approximately 1 p.m., Supervisor Purcell responded to the CBI lab in Arvada to submit the buccal swabs, prints, and hand-foot impressions collected from Chris Watts for comparison. Purcell was met there by CBI Evidence Technician Tracy Benson. Purcell took custody of 6 pieces of evidence from Technician Benson for transport to the FPD. These items include clothing belonging to Chris Watts and handwritten notes. All items were transported by Purcell to the FPD and locked into evidence. Nothing further, Purcell. The next page is by Detective Dave Balmover. This is dated October 10th, 2018. And it says, on August 13th, a triple homicide of Shanann Watts and her 2 daughters, Bella and Celeste, occurred in their Frederick home. I respectfully submit the following items for forensic testing. Item 173 are buccal swabs collected from the defendant on October 4th, 2018, requesting DNA analysis in comparison to previously collected evidence. Item 174 are fingerprint cards and hand impressions from the defendant on October 4th, requesting latent print analysis with previously collected evidence. Items 175 are foot impressions from the defendant, also on October 4th, requesting latent print comparison to previously collected evidence. Sincerely, Detective Dave Balmover. The next page is a form by Purcell for requesting that those laboratory examinations of the buccal swabs, fingerprints, and foot impressions. The following page after that is an evidence receipt for those items as well. The following page after that is also Purcell. This lists greeting cards, a handwritten card, miscellaneous clothing of Chris Watts, and a video interview with the mistress on August 16th. And this is from Amanda Purcell returning this into evidence. So it says items returned to agency. The following page is similar. It's X-ray PDF data disk and X-ray phone extraction data. Also says items returned to agency, FPD Amanda Purcell on October 10th. The next page is just a quick report from Aaron Koning from the CBI Forensic Services Division regarding when they went to the jail. So it just says, on Monday, October 1st, Weld County District Attorney's Office investigator Kathy Holscher requested assistance in the execution of a Rule 16 order on Thursday, October 4th. Rule 16 collection. Forensic scientist Kaylee Henson and I arrived at the Weld County Jail at 1:30 on October 4th. There we met several other individuals, including WCDAO Investigator Holscher, FPD Detective Baumover, and Colorado State Public Defender Investigator Sylvia Martinez. We were then escorted by jail personnel back to a common area where the Rule 16 collection was to be performed. The Rule 16 collection was initiated at approximately 2:06 in Weld County Jail. After the buccal swabs and major case prints from the hands were taken, Investigator Holscher, Henson, and I collected barefoot exemplars from Chris Watts. Total of 5 barefoot exemplars were taken using the fingerprint powder hand-to-print adhesive lifter method. And it just talks about them packaging and sealing the items. Page after that has a number of zip files, but it's just home searches and the flyers that were distributed and some pictures. Okay, the page after that is by Jillian Ganley, and this is Denver CBI. And it says, initial analytical assistance provided for Frederick missing persons case. Then it lists the names of the mistress, Chris, and Bella, Celeste, and Shanann. It says, on August 14th at 3:14 p.m., I received a text from Tammy Lee requesting me to preserve phone records for Shanann Watts and Chris Watts. She also asked if I could find and preserve Facebook records for both Shanann and Chris. I sent 2 preservation requests to AT&T Mobility for Chris and Shanann's phones. Around 3:50 p.m., I also submitted a preservation request for Shanann Watts' Facebook account. I was not able to locate an account for Chris Watts. After completing these requests, Agent Tammy Lee asked if I could come to the FPD to assist on scene. I arrived at the FPD at 6:34 p.m. and was briefed on any updates. While at the police department on August 14th, I was forwarded information received from Tony, manager with Anadarko, regarding Chris Watts' GPS records for July and August in his work vehicle. By placing the given coordinates in Google Maps, I was able to identify the likely path he took on the morning of August 13th, and his first significant stop that morning. This information was shared with CBI, FBI, and FPD. I also ran any residential addresses that he spent significant time at through public and criminal justice databases to establish a pattern of life and any relevant associates. No persons of note were discovered through this analysis. I was also forwarded the initial returns from the Verizon exigency request by FBI agent Kevin Hoyland. This record was for Chris Watts' work phone. I was asked to run the subscriber data and attempt to establish a timeline for Chris Watts for Sunday, August 12th and Monday, August 13th. Each unknown phone number was run through criminal and public data sources to identify the subscriber data. This information was forwarded to FBI agent Kevin Hoyland and CBI agent Tammy Lee. Once the information was forwarded, I uploaded the records to our cell phone analysis software, GeoTime, to analyze call patterns and timeline information. The software automatically converts all data from UTC to MST, Mountain Standard Time, when applicable. I left Frederick for the night around 11:30 p.m. The next morning, August 15th at 8:07 a.m., I received information from CBI agent Stacy Galbraith that Chris Watts possibly had a girlfriend. This information was provided by Tony. Tony forwarded an email communication between the mistress and Watts that may be relevant. Agent Galbraith requested that I do a full workup on this individual. I completed searches in public and criminal justice databases to prepare a full and complete law enforcement support packet. The packet was forwarded to all relevant law enforcement personnel. While at the command post on August 15th, I received a cell phone return from Verizon Wireless for the mistress. Agent Kevin Hoyland and I agreed that I would analyze the document for any relevant content, while he would analyze the phone tolls. I highlighted the document to illustrate any contact between the mistress and Chris Watts. Additionally, I received the returns from AT&T for both Shanann and Chris's personal phones. I ran both returns through GeoTime and noted any relevant calls during times of interest. I also researched criminal and public data sources to attempt to identify any unknown contacts in the phone returns. Throughout the rest of the day, I completed any necessary searches to identify contact information for relevant parties in the investigation. On August 15th, I also received a copy of the Cellbrite cell phone dump that was done by Tacoma Police Department on Chris Watts' personal phone. Like the other phones, Agent Kevin Hoyland and I came to the agreement that I would analyze the content and he would analyze the phone tolls. Throughout the next several weeks, I started building a timeline on I2 Analyst's notebook to illustrate any relevant events in the weeks leading up to the homicide. I pulled my data from official police reports, cell phone returns from phone providers for Shanann, Chris personal, and Chris work, and the mistress. The Cellbrite dump on Chris Watts' phone and screenshots taken directly from Shanann's friends' phones. The timeline is not a complete representation of all data available and should be considered a draft. On September 11, 2018, it was determined that another investigation would complete the timeline in another software that is more easily shared with the group. My work on the timeline ceased at this point. End of report. Then you have a number of attachments here, so we won't go through all of them, but all related to what we just read, and it goes into about 41 of them. So you can come back and look at them. They're on 1466 and 1467. So that's where we're going to end part 52 on page 1467. And I would just like to take a moment of silence for Nico. Nico, we know you're in heaven, and we are so incredibly sorry that this world was so cruel to you. But we know you're in heaven with the angels, and just some of those angels being Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. God bless you, Nico. And I also just want to recognize Nikolas in this part specifically. That's Nicole's son. You know, I don't know that he got the recognition that he probably deserves. And he definitely deserves. You know, he was right there side by side with his mom, acting like a very strong-willed adult, looking for things, finding the phone, going over to the neighbor's house. He didn't just sit there and play on a cell phone or twiddle his thumbs. He took this very seriously, and he responded. You know, he even got interviewed, as we read, and I just want to take this moment to recognize Nikolas and the tremendous impact he had that day, and I'm sure thereafter. But what he did to help move this along should not be forgotten. So thank you, Nikolas. And just pray for the Rzuceks family in loving memory of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Niko. Have a great day.